Hey, welcome, Kevin. How you doing?
Thanks for having me. I'm
Yeah,
great.
appreciate it. Yeah, so today's session, and it's something that probably you're very, very familiar with, is as we talk about AI, and we've spoken to a lot of people on how to use AI, what to do with AI. Really want to dig into what comes before AI, the data, how important it is, issues with it, what you need to do, how to structure it. So before we get into really the nuts and bolts of that, I'd love maybe if you want to throw to an introduction of yourself, and we could go from there.
Sure. Born, raised, still reside in Dallas, Texas, on University Park. Got three kiddos, little girls that drive me crazy. Got out of UT Austin in '04 with my undergrad, worked at Morgan Stanley as a real estate analyst for a couple of years, then got an MBA during the financial crisis. Spent almost a decade in real estate technology consulting across a couple different firms. Still have a lot of PTSD from system implementations, as I'm sure you can imagine. Then in 2019, I became the COO of a small data visualization startup called Navigator CRE. I was there for a little over 3 years, grew the team to 50 people, raised the A round, opened up our London office. That was where I built my chops as a software executive. Then spent a little over 3 years as the head of corporate development at Cherre, which is a property type agnostic, geography agnostic, life cycle stage agnostic data management company. And that's where I probably took the red pill with regard to data foundation and data management before you do other things. Recently, I became the COO of Real Estate Business Analytics, or REBA for short. We are solely focused on the world of multifamily housing. So a lot of what I talk about today will probably skew toward the multifamily world, but given my history, I can talk about many different property types.
Perfect. Yeah. And then, so your experience, especially, folks on the word Cherry, that was like, the golden child of platforms built on data and good data. So let's just start there, right? Because everyone's heard the phrase garbage in, garbage out, and these programs cannot accelerate.
Yep.
But from your perspective, like what did that mean from what was the garbage coming in?
So sometimes it's not actually garbage. It's just inappropriately timed. So when we think about the importance of data as a real estate practitioner, whether you're in charge of finding deals or underwriting deals or closing deals or operating and managing deals or selling them and then raising capital, when you input information into a system matters, and who else has access to that information so that they can make decisions also matters. So the data itself might be in your mind clean at a point in time, but the sands often shift with the market or with your operating business. That's important with regard to market lease assumptions when you're underwriting a deal. That's important to on leasing comps when you're trying to lease up space. That's important to tracking work orders and amenity usage, et cetera. So even if the data itself, when you put it in, is full and complete, if it's mistimed or at the wrong cadence, it could turn into garbage. That's item one. Oftentimes also information lives in people's heads, and a lot of context also lives in people's heads, and that context does not make it into a system where the information is shared. So just saying, we're at 91% occupancy, that doesn't really matter. Like, okay, well, is 91 good? Is
Right.
91 more than it was last quarter? Is 91 at the rental rates you were hoping to get? There's so many other levers that you can pull that one data point on its own is usually not sufficient for any real decision making. Back in the pre-AI days, so 2023 and earlier, when you had what we would call garbage data in, and that drove a report or a dashboard, you could just manually update the visual output to an audience, a JV partner, a limited partner, a regulator, an internal executive. You could adjust that information, and the risk and the cost was a little bit lower to getting the information wrong. But once you put AI on top of that information, and you ask it to give you recommendations, you ask it to execute workflow, you ask it to interoperate with another system that then drives its own recommendations and workflows, you can see how the risk and opportunity gets exponentially larger. So if you have bad or incomplete data in a system, when it goes to AI, all of the sudden that could become really great or really bad really quickly.
Okay, and so you mentioned two things that I want to sort of combine. One was like timing of data, and then the second thing you mentioned was these edits that happen in the last mile out the door, which we all have to operate that way because of those two issues and the nature,
Yeah.
the speed of the business. But you have a discrepancy of like reporting that went out the door to data that was in the source system, which then that's what people start referring to as like the garbage in, garbage out problem. Do you see a world facilitated by AI where that starts going away or that starts getting tightened or there's a feedback loop or something else where I'd rather not doing last mile adjustments, or if we do, there is a feedback loop to the source data.
What typically happens when you try to get AI to solve a workflow on your behalf is you see where the holes in your process are, right? You see where AI screws up and gets caught, or when it confidently makes a decision that's dead wrong, and you start questioning it in the back and forth interface. Why this is not right? Oh, you're right, it's not right, and here's what I missed, and here's what you need to answer. A good example of that could be around parking. So if you just say, here's our parking revenue, and you just report it out, like that's not nearly enough context. Well, is that driven by paid spaces for daily use? Is that built by subscriptions by tenants or other residents or visitors? Is it covered parking? Is it open parking? Is it a reserved space? Is it a shared space? Like all of those nuances. Like if you're not recording all of that data in a system, you're going to have an incorrect answer. But if you ask AI to tell you to produce parking analytics and then ask questions on what it needs to know before it can give you an answer, it may ask all of those questions of you. And then you may discover, oh, we don't actually track in our system which parking spaces are open to the elements versus covered like a carport versus in an underground parking garage. And oh, by the way, we don't know which different parking providers we have partnered with at each property, and do those parking providers record data in the same standard so that we can actually report at a portfolio management level what our parking revenue is or what our parking revenue could be that we're choosing to give up as a perk to get higher rental rates or more participation from tenants. All that stuff can get uncovered as a whole by AI and then usually gets solved by AI and human judgment.
Yeah, and I love that, right? Because we're the domain experts. Everything you ask, you've got because you've been in the world. But over time, like AI is going to become the domain expert. So
Yeah.
instead of stopping and thinking about what are the 40 things I want to ask the AI today morning, it already has a list of 40 things, and it could do it. It could do it for you at 9 in the morning, and then figure out what's really important from that subset, and only bubble that up for what needs to be human reviewed versus what can it just run off with, right? So again, yeah, if you solve that process, it will just sort of get better as we go. Another thing I want to sort of touch on that you shared is that, you said if the data is in the system, right? So coming from the property tech world, we have there's a parking system, and then there's an ERP, and then there's a finance system. What is the first thing folks should start doing so that the AI can operate across these systems?
Well, the first thing to do is like kind of run an audit, try to get some sort of dump of the data. And use AI as a thought partner. Our advice at REBA, I should say, we are rolling out Claude Enterprise to every single person in the company. One, because then we know what information is being entered and analyzed, and we can learn as a company and collaborate with one another. But we also protect information that we do not want shared with the outside world on behalf of our clients. The second reason we're doing that is this industry is undergoing a shift where most folks are thinking of AI as a way to just be more productive. And we're thinking about it much differently. We're thinking about becoming AI first and AI native. Because if you do that, you unlock multiple thought partners as you go to solve problems, right? And if you do it in that way, you can not just be more productive and accelerate your workflows and collaborate with others, but like all the stuff you hate doing, AI can do on your behalf as long as you're having that conversation back and forth with AI.
So you have the good data, and you have Cloud Enterprise, you're rolled out internally, and you control the data flow.
And
What
the
about
reason we're doing that is so when you run a system audit, when you go into a system and you want to know what data you're actually tracking, if you get a dump out of the system and put it into AI and say, here's what we have, what are we missing that is critical to conduct the business? Now you know what fields are not being filled in, what fields are only being filled in haphazardly. or
Yeah.
spasmodically. You also uncover any limitations that the underlying system has at you getting information. As you can imagine, with all these PMSs being gated, they make you pay to get your own data back to yourself. They have limitations on their APIs, but you may not know what the real true limits are as an owner operator until you try to pull all of that data out and put it into AI to ask questions of it or combine it with another system's data. You won't know what you can have and what you can't until you run this exercise. So it's a healthy exercise just to see where are your people missing opportunities to enter information, and where is the system itself a limiter to you getting access to that same information.
Yeah, and that system you define that entire process, it's the data governance process, right? It's the same thing that we were doing like 15 years ago, where there would be a data governance council and there would be, data owners,
Yeah.
and that's like a prime ripe use case for AI, where your data governance council is AI. It understands what your data, the context is, what's missing, what remediations there are. Do you have a move out date that's after at least 2 days? So it then becomes the data cleanup, the data janitor. And I think we were using that term a couple of years ago. So I think that's like one of the prime use cases when you talk about, you need good data for AI. Well, AI also becomes itself fulfilling prophecy cleaning system as well, which I think you guys, again, it's kind of what you were describing.
Yeah, and look, it's still, even 2 decades later, it's still pretty hard to make data governance sexy.
So hard.
But
Yeah.
in this world of called accelerated decision making, where you need to sit in an investment committee meeting and make decisions a lot faster, real estate at the end of the day is still a very relationship driven business. But because so many companies have raised so much capital and they're just itching to deploy it, having trusted data and AI help you make those decisions quicker could be the difference in you getting a deal that is sought after versus losing a deal that's sought after. And also, it will help you identify a potential deal that others are purposely avoiding because they don't see a way to make the deal pencil. And because you
Right.
have different data or different framework or different philosophy, and AI helps you think differently about office to resi conversion that no one thinks will work, but you have some proprietary information will make it work. Or a deal that a million people are going after that looks amazing on paper, and you're thinking that is absolutely the wrong way to look at this, the demographics don't support it, you stay away and completely avoid that rat race or that bidding war, and you focus instead on where the puck is going.
Okay, yeah, and so because with AI, now we're a little off topic, but I do want to dig into this as well.
Yeah.
Is people, the huge cases like pumping your OMs, pumping your data, and AI will underwrite this for you and tell you if it's a good deal. But then you have everyone underwriting the same way, and it's also done very linearly. So one, it creates massive competition for the same deals, but two, everyone's getting the shared bias. But then on the other side, you have what you were sharing, where you have proprietary information, proprietary knowledge, and the counter argument is, how are you smarter than AI? Right? Is this a blind spot on your side of arrogance? So, like, where do you sort of lay on that? And is there a solution that's blended between the two?
Yeah, I think that the hybrid solution is the answer, right? You want AI because everyone else is going to be deploying it, and you have to get to a go, no go a lot faster. Or maybe not necessarily go, no go, but is this worth your time doing deeper diligence or not? Like that AI should solve, right? You should have the ability to look at 100 different marketing circulars every single day and determine which 2 of the 100 you're actually going to release your underwriting team, your analysts, your folks onto. And then once they're in those deals, it's their job to figure out, okay, what asymmetric information might I have
Okay.
that my competitors do not, that would make them bid on a deal I wouldn't, or make them avoid a deal I'm excited about, or invest in an amenity in my building people say is not popular, but is really good for this one specific census block, or not build out something that seems to be super popular with certain crowds in certain markets, but in my market, it's just not relevant. So that deeper local knowledge is usually where humans are, at least for the moment, currently outperforming AI. Like, who knows how long that lasts? But I think AI gets you to a certain level in the life cycle of decision making, whether that's asset management, portfolio management, treasury, capital raising, et cetera. And then there's human judgment that comes after that, which is usually what's going to generate alpha or better NOI or et cetera.
Okay, yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, that little bit of data that that the model doesn't have, that belongs to, it's not just in your head, right? It's something that, if you drive by a site and physically see that the AI is not going to be able to do, and I don't know, maybe you see like a hurricane like wiped out the building next door. Those are the things that you could fit in and be like, that gets our NOI percentage up 2 points, which long term is massive.
But the difference today is even just 2019, pre-COVID, brokers would go do that and the information would be in their head. They would do a site visit and they would share that information in their most trusted network. Today with technology, you've got your recording device sitting in your
Yeah.
hand. You're driving by somewhere and you see something interesting. You voice memo that thing into the phone. That voice memo can now be stored in your notes and then interoperate with the system that you're using. And now that context can be combined with other data. And so that proprietary information now becomes shareable, right? And
Right.
collaborated across other departments and decision-making groups so that there's no longer like a bunch of email chains or Slack and Teams threads. Hopefully it just gets uploaded as context into some sort of dashboard that then accelerates the debate in an investment committee meeting or a pilot status meeting or a lease up meeting or a work order prioritization meeting,
Right.
what have you.
All roads lead back to get a data warehouse in place.
I mean, exactly, right? You
Yep.
you need somewhere where all of this information can be combined together for use.
Cool. Well, we're a little bit over again. So, again, I appreciate you taking the time. This is super helpful. And yeah, again, thank you for the time. And we hope we'll have some more conversations like this in the future.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
All right. Appreciate it.